Will AI make humans smarter or lazier? Welcome back, Nation, to another weekly episode where we sit down with high performers to unpack how they are thriving in their field and what you can do to apply it to your own journey. Today we're talking about the relationship between humans and technology. As AI becomes more powerful, it forces us to rethink the way we learn and what it really means to keep developing as a human being. Today's guest is Mark Cassetta, CPO at eShare. He leads product strategy, innovation, and for the last 2 decades, Mark has worked at the intersection of technology, strategy, and leadership, helping organizations build products, scale teams, and navigate through complex technological shifts. When we met at My Trust, we talked about humanity, we talked about technology, and I was wondering, you went to school for marketing.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get so involved in technology?
I mean, it was interesting. At the time when I graduated, it was just so clear if you wanted to do anything in marketing when it comes to taking an idea from idea to out to actually to people to be able to purchase it or use it, the underpinning of all of that was going to be technology.
Technology in the past industrial revolution, these different tools that we had recently in the last 200 years have changed the way humans think. Do you think AI will change the way humans think?
Oh, it's already started to change how we think.
How?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one I've been thinking a lot about. What's been our specialty as humans is problem solving, right? Is getting thrown something that you have to sort of figure out. You got very little context, and over a period of time, you break down these steps to figure out how to solve that problem. And it's that journey that ultimately creates a special craft for us, right? It's the thing that creates our specialty amongst billions of other people, right? It's how we all sort of create our own individuality and identity in many respects. And I think with AI, all of a sudden, you can very quickly get caught into a trap to start losing that, right? And I'm not saying necessarily that to not embrace AI by any means. And if you're, it's perhaps a whole other question, but in many respects, you have to do it in technology today. If you're not, you're getting left behind. But from how do we think? Absolutely. I mean, the scariest part to me is when one starts to lose their craft, when they start to lose their superpower, right, to AI. AI is definitely forcing us to change how we think. It can be a great enhancement to how we think if we do it the right way. And I've got a couple thoughts on how to do that. But
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's changing how we think.
So there is a way that we can lose our spark or our superpower.
Mm-hmm.
What does self-destructive or inefficient use of AI look like?
So I think the best place to start is there's kind of two sort of rules that I have going on as I start thinking when I use AI. You always, always, always have to write the first idea or the first words, right? Don't just go to AI and say, create this for me, right? Now, there may be a time and a place to do that, but when it comes to your craft, when it comes to your superpower, always create the first idea, right? And as I've kind of broken that down, I always look at it now as always create draft zero, right? So there's a marketing, guru, Ann Handley. She's wonderful, has a great newsletter, talks a lot about just how to write. And I've been seeing her newsletter evolve over the last 3 or 4 years in this AI era, and it's been quite fascinating. But before the AI era, she'd always talk about draft zero being sort of that first thing you just get out on paper, right? And I think as we think about, how not to lose that spark, we have to always still own draft zero, right? So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is, okay, well, look, life is really fast. There's a lot of things going on. And there's going to be times when, maybe you don't have time to write draft zero, and it's just so easy just to go to AI and just say, hey, can you just give me a nudge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's going to be times when you really got to hold back. Well, then how do I figure out what my superpower is?
Yeah.
Right. And so the way I look at that is you draw a Venn diagram, and you basically, you think about all the things that you are, I'd say, borderline an expert in. Borderline, it could be, certainly somebody who's been in their career for a couple of decades, those things certainly would stand out in the workforce. But whether or not you've been in the workforce for a couple of decades, or whether you're just starting out, there's things that you're advanced in. There's things that you're better at than others. And so you draw a Venn diagram of all of those things. And at the center of that Venn diagram is going to be your superpower. And so as you think about your use of AI, I would encourage you to say, okay, if I'm going to go use AI for this task, is this task related to my superpower? And if it's related to my superpower, before I go start using AI, write draft 0, right? Always write draft 0. Maybe even go to draft 1 with it. And then once you get to draft 1, then you can start bringing AI on top of it.
Interesting.
Right? And when you start bringing AI on top of it, you refrain from it just taking it and running, right? You instead workshop it. And so 2 prompts that I use, well, and one's very simple. I always just ask it to be very, very honest. Like I always want honesty, right, and directness. And then the second is, I don't want you to write this. I want to workshop it with me. I want you to workshop this with me. And what that does is it actually holds back in just giving you all the answers, and you just go through a process like you would with another thinking partner.
Right.
And I think that slows down this kind of instant gratification of getting content within 30 seconds and takes you on a journey over the course of minutes, hours, days to get to something that probably may have taken you a couple of months, but is still dialed into your craft.
I like that. For the podcast, I do something similar. I brainstorm, I do all of these things. I think about what I want to talk about, and then I use it to structure it, to maybe even clean the grammar, right? To use it as a Grammarly.
Yeah, yeah.
But I truly believe that you got to put your creative spark on it, though. No?
Yeah, absolutely.
But now, I also want to talk about, this has been happening for like less than what? ChatGPT was released 2018.
Yeah.
So it has been happening for 8 years.
Yeah, roughly.
I think technology has changed the way we did everything in the 1990s. So technology was a huge change to human nature. Do you think AI will change human nature?
Oh, hold on, that's a coffee question. One sec here.
Absolutely. Because what I'm thinking about is that technology changed our human nature in ways that, for example, I don't have to go to Mexico to see my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I can just call them on WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go to my friend's house. I can just FaceTime them.
Yeah.
Or to hang out, we can play a video game instead of actually playing in real life.
Yeah.
Monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
We can play Monopoly online now.
Yeah.
The way you do your taxes, file everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's without a doubt going to be there already is a change in human nature and how in what we do and how we approach things. And, certainly there's a lot of risks, a lot of big risks associated to it, but there's also an opportunity to kind of give time back, right? And to make more time when used appropriately. So
okay,
kind of coming back to this idea of when to use AI, when to keep yourself sharp. The other side of it is I think the further and further if you draw that Venn diagram, the further and further you get away from sort of your craft, the more of an opportunity there is to perhaps use AI and give you time back, right? So I'll give you an example. Meal planning can be something that can be a delight, right? But when you've got variables like an 8 and 10-year-old who one week might like a tomato and the next week don't like tomatoes, or the week after that like tomatoes done a certain way, there's a lot of variables in that, and can sometimes make it complex. And so immediately when I sort of I learned about vibe coding, the very first thing I vibe coded was a meal planning app.
Vibe coding.
Vibe coding.
What is that?
You have not heard of vibe coding?
Vibe coding.
Vibe, VIBE?
I feel like it's coding with ChatGPT. I think that's what it is.
Yes. So at this point, it's Chat, GPT, or Claude. They all have, they're getting there. But the originals were the likes of a Replit or Lovable. And effectively, vibe coding is making any idea that you've had, any app that you've ever wanted to build. It is eliminating the barriers for people who are not engineers. And so if you have a creative bone in your body and want to create something from a software perspective, you do that by vibe coding. And now Claude Code and certainly ChatGPT, I believe, have their own version of it. And then Microsoft's building it in even just for developers themselves. It is what is, I think what a lot of the tech sector is both excited for and fearful for a variety of reasons. But the crazy part about it is I grew up in certainly learning about technology, knowing technology, did everything possible in technology with the exception of writing code. I did QA, I did program management, but I was never that person that was cranking code every day. Vibe coding, and so I'd always have to rely on a developer to take something and create an app or create an idea. Vibe coding has eliminated that, right? So for me, it was, hey, wait a second, wouldn't it be, I learned about vibe coding from a friend of mine. He said, oh, you gotta go try Replit. And this is back in July, I believe. And all of a sudden, within about 4 hours, I built a meal planning app. And it was now, I never launched it for a whole variety of reasons.
Right.
But I was just like
mesmerized.
Well, I've had meal planning apps before. They don't work very well. They're missing a whole bunch of things, and can't take into the fact that what we cooked last week and the week after. And so coming all the way back to changing human behavior, now I didn't necessarily have to go out and go pay and think about an app that go try to find an app. I could build something for myself that would fix my problem, right, in my way. And maybe other people would like it. That's cool. But, certainly it's something that could fix a problem that I had. Now I still have to actually bring it all to life. And it's not like you just spend 4 or 5 hours creating an app and there you go. There's still time and effort that goes into it. But it's not like you have to go out and spend thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to go hire a development team and build this app. You're literally spending a couple $100 and you've got something that is absolutely usable.
Before our grandmothers probably would have been like, oh, I need to turn the TV and see like what are they cooking on the TV show, and then I have to like write down the notes very fast because if I don't get it now, I'm not gonna get the recipe.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I think human nature, like you said, it is changing a lot, right? And then it can come up with the ingredients like boom.
Yep.
I don't know the specifics of the app, but I'm guessing it's pretty good at meal.
Yeah, I mean and this is the thing, right? So before and now, like I said, never released the app, but now I use Claude for meal planning, and I've got a project set up, and it knows what I cooked the week before, and and therefore let's not replicate what I did last week. And it's definitely saving me time. It's giving me time back. It's making the experience more fun, right? And so from a behavior perspective, that's great. Now, going back to our point about superpower, right? If I was a chef and I had my own restaurant and and my specialty was coming up with these amazing recipes and something that nobody else has, I would probably stay pretty far away from using AI to come up with those recipes or coming up with a meal plan, at least for draft 0, draft 1, maybe even draft 2, maybe to help refine, right? But I'm not a chef, just a parent trying to get a meal plan out for the week.
Right.
So it's, so that's kind of the way to look at it. But, I do fear that it's like, well, wait a second, am I not learning? Am I limiting how good of a cook I could become because I'm going down this path?
What are some of the things that you think humans will stop doing because now they have AI? So, for example, for me, I don't call my mom as much asking for help because I have AI.
Ah, interesting.
So what are some of those examples?
Yeah. So this is an interesting question because on one hand, there's kind of what I think we're going to stop doing, what I hope we don't necessarily stop doing either, right? So
Okay.
it's a two-sided coin, because AI can very much be that thinking partner,
Mm-hmm.
right? You use AI to maybe work through a problem that you may have called a parent for before.
Right.
That's a really interesting use case. At the same time, that's what makes us human, right? It's that's an interconnection that I think we need to maintain, right? And so I think there's a balance of, and don't get me wrong, I do believe that's a great use case at the same time. So on the things we're going to stop doing, I can speak to. I'll take it from maybe a tech standpoint. Everything is when we think of the product development lifecycle process, it's all just collapsing, right? So I just talked about vibe coding, where you'd have, historically you had your software development lifecycle. You would come up with an idea, you'd create a requirements document. That requirements document would then generate a series of user stories and use cases. Design would pick it up, create the design. Architecture would review. After architecture review gets handed over to engineering. Engineering starts building, go through a series of iterations. 3 to 6 months later, you're out the door with something and maybe a few things, and maybe you've iterated or you've already had an MVP. But either way, you've gone through that process. That entire process is now collapsed, right? And it's collapsed into, what would have been maybe a whole variety of swim lanes into like maybe 1 or 2 swim lanes, right? And so we're not the handoffs, the meetings, the things that, we're just trying to use to kind of connect one group to another. Those kinds of discussions, I think, are going to be less and less and less. It's just going to get done, right? I think what's going to come on top of that, and maybe this is the optimist in me, is going to be more discussions about how what we're building is going to have an impact on the market, and how is this going to have an impact on customers? And we're going to be able to spend more time with customers, because we're spending less time just building out the product or the feature, right? I guess to put it maybe in the most succinct way, we're going to stop spending as much time building the products and spending more time with customers and with users than we are today in getting their feedback. All right. And I think that that's going to be everybody's role in an organization, right? And so historically, you've always had your engineering organization and your product teams and your go-to-market teams. I think that as this collapses more and more and more, and I don't mean necessarily collapse in a bad way, just as everything kind of comes together, everybody is going to be in front of customers in some way, and which will in theory make a better product and a better experience. So we're not going to be able to hide behind process. Getting alignment and clarity on what we have to deliver to the market is only going to get more and more refined, and the accountability really is going to be set across every single person in the organization.
Here's a little concern I have.
Mm-hmm.
If all of these processes are getting collapsed,
Mm-hmm.
and there are way more startups
Yep.
because of that, right? So everybody's trying to solve a new problem,
Yep.
right? And then when you realize, boom, the problem is gone because, well, the processes are so short that now there's 15 competitors,
Yeah.
like super fast,
Yep.
right? So I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, the process of validation and all this have been compressed because now we have access to a pretty rich knowledge base,
Yep.
right? If everybody is solving all of the problems, all of these jobs, the white collar jobs
Yep.
to manage or to build products that are going to slowly get not replaced, but simply there's not going to be a process for them to work on.
Yeah. I hear that. Obviously, certainly in the tech sector, there's definitely a big concern of what is AI going to do from a job perspective. And we're seeing that firsthand, right? You're seeing all the big companies are shedding jobs because of well, they're quoting AI at least as a reason. I can only guess, and I would say generally speaking, I'm more of an optimist. So my guess is going to be more on the optimist side, which is we have a tendency to, when technology shifts happen like this, to not run out of problems, but to usually create more problems.
Yeah.
And therefore, those problems create
More jobs.
more jobs and more opportunities. I think the other side of it is we are we are going through a big shift in how we look at what do companies look like over the next decade. And of course, there's always going to be big companies out there. But if we think of 40 years ago, when, let's say when my parents were working, they were at companies for 30 years, right? 40 years sometimes. And then over the last couple of decades, that's just shrunk more and more and more. And it shrunk for a whole variety of reasons. I think things just moving so quickly, the nature in which organizations evolve and why they're evolving. It's all just one big ecosystem being created, or it's one ecosystem being created after another, right? So as one ecosystem gets created, that generates a series of problems that creates another ecosystem of companies. But I think that as those ecosystems are getting created, the companies are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And what AI has done, going back to our point about vibe coding, is it's now made it accessible for anybody. I would never say I could just start a company and without an engineer get a product, take a product to market and do it 100% by myself. You always need to have that tech person in the company, but no longer do you need as many people to get things going, right? To get things going in a really meaningful way, right? The $100 million 20-person company is, those frontier companies, they call them, are happening, and they're happening quite a bit now. So I guess to come back to your point about, are we concerned about job loss? And the answer is yes, but I think that we're creating a whole series of new opportunities or problems, and the creativity that can come through AI and the opportunity that can come through AI is going to let those that want it go after those opportunities.
If people stop managing, building products, and they move towards being in front of a customer, I feel like that's closely or closer to be a blue-collar job. Not quite, of course, but it's in person, it's in real life, right? It's no longer on a computer, or no longer filing papers or data analyzing. I feel like this has been happening for 8 years. How is AI going to be maybe in 10 more? And will there be a need to have an accountant? Right? So I feel like if all of these jobs are moving away from white collar managing and building and all this, they're going to be moving to the real life.
Right.
Blue collar.
Right.
I feel like if we're going to create more problems where there are going to be more jobs, I fear that it's only going to be either AI fixing, trying to fix AI, or blue collar.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I still think that there's going to be a leveling out, and frankly, the technology is going to force us to level out, right? There's a pretty significant energy problem that comes with all of this, right? And so over the next few years, things are they're going to level out. To what degree, I'm not sure, but they're definitely going to level out. I would say that in terms of, the shift between folks kind of who are, let's say, more back office, writing code, or, writing your tax returns, no longer necessarily having to write those tax returns, you've got AI perhaps doing it. There's still an element of that superpower that has to come back.
Strategy.
Right? Well, strategy, but just what I believe is actually the human element is going to be valued even more, right? So you're going to have, you mentioned tax returns as an example, right? So yeah, perhaps instead of, it's going to accelerate how many tax returns an accountant can do in a month, right? 100%. And it already has in many respects, no doubt. And it's only going to get faster. But you're still going to have that you're still going to want that human at the end, I suspect, to maybe just do a double check, right? Just to do a validation and make sure that everything's good. And so they're not spending as much time filling out the forms. They're spending more time just going, yep, this, taking their superpower and applying it, and taking their judgment and applying it to what was produced from an AI perspective versus actually writing everything down. Same thing, you mentioned about, call it engineers being in front of customers. And I know, some would say, oh, like that's not what I signed up for. The fascinating thing is, I think some of the people that are physically building the products, right? The hardest thing is from a product development standpoint, is translating what you hear from that customer, from the market, getting into the hands and into the ears of a development team. It's 30, 40, 100 people, whatever the size of the team, right? And there's always that gap. Well, if you can remove that gap entirely and have engineering part of that conversation, because they don't have to spend as much time on the code, right, and writing the code, their superpower is only getting stronger, right? And I believe that this is where I do feel that it creates significant opportunity. Now, is it going to create layoffs? I mean, again, we're seeing it already happen in tech, so it's hard to say it's not.
I'm going to challenge I love that you're optimistic.
Yep.
I think I'm just concerned.
Yeah.
And I found this metaphor that I've been thinking about a lot.
Yep.
So basically, there's this interesting idea that wolves, the superior species, slowly turned into dogs when men came along because, well, you fed them, they didn't need to hunt anymore, they didn't need to be as ruthless, right? They became duller. Once food became easy and survival was guaranteed, they became smaller, softer, and more dependent on humans. Some people think something similar might be happening to human nature right now, and not necessarily with AI, more about with technology, AI, we're finding solutions to our frictions. We are that strong species, but slowly we're removing those frictions and the need, for example, to file in those taxes, we're not building those connections, and I think there's, from a human perspective, absolutely, it's something that we have to challenge ourselves on, and this is a spur of the thought Tim Hortons comment, but it's kind of like, maybe there comes a point where just like we talk about physical exercise and keeping our bodies healthy, right?
We maybe have to be even more intentional about mental exercise, right, on a weekly basis and maybe a daily basis, right, to keep our minds sharp. And yes, I know that we talk about that in the context as we age of making sure we keep our minds sharp, but maybe all of us, right, have to continue that exercise and become even more intentional of training and think, okay, here's the set I'm going to do now. I'm going to focus on this part of the brain.
55 reps.
Yeah, exactly, right? So that I'm staying sharp. Maybe that's where we're getting to. I'd like to think that as we look at our respective domains, we're going to have that intentionality to not let us fall into the trap of becoming complacent with AI. That's going to be on everybody, right? And so but I agree. Yeah, no, we have to be really careful about losing that craft.
That's actually very interesting, and I'm actually more relieved now because absolutely we humans start to be less active, and we figure out a way of training, and now everybody's like, yeah, you gotta go to the gym, you have to go lift weights, which wasn't really popular like 300 years ago, right? So
yeah, not even 300. I think it was like in the last 40 years.
Yeah,
right. It was
I've been hearing a lot about the sitting is the new smoking.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah, for sure. It was super, super random. Arnold Schwarzenegger spoke at a Gartner conference I was at last year. And I think he talked about how he was, again, I don't know if it's true or not, but he was an inspiration for actually what drove a lot of hotels to get gyms.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that wasn't that long ago when you think about it. Whereas now we just kind of take it for granted. There's a gym in every hotel. No, it doesn't matter like how small that hotel is. And I've been to some that are on the road, pretty small, and there's still a treadmill and maybe a couple of odd dumbbells, but they're there, right? And so there's an element, and we evolved to that because we were eating more and we had more access to food, and more people were becoming unhealthy, and so we added gyms. Now, maybe something similar happens with AI, and we have mental gyms that we go to on on a daily basis. Who knows?
Huh. That's actually really, really interesting. What does human growth then look like if humans got so strong and we figure out ways to build, we figure out how to make electricity and then AI? Do you think AI will allow us to grow, or how does human growth look like from here?
It could give us a great opportunity to grow from a human perspective. I think that it could solve a lot of problems, right? There is a lot of there's a lot of opportunities for it to solve problems too, especially on the healthcare side, especially on, I was just thinking about it the other day, imagine AI in the form that it is today was around when in 2020 when COVID first hit, right? How would that have changed things? I don't know, but I feel like things may have been, would it have accelerated, vaccinations? Would it have accelerated? Like, I don't know, maybe, right? How many lives could it have saved?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know, but I think about those kinds of things and go, that could, maybe it can be better. Obviously, on the other side, I go, could it help us solve the climate crisis that we're in? Could it help us solve diseases that are just that are terminal, right? Again, the optimist in me says yes, and I think that could be a great opportunity for growth. But at the same time, I'm also very aware of where it can go wrong. I work in cybersecurity, so I also see how it's being used in very negative ways all the time. So,
well, and that's a rabbit hole because
yeah.
In the last 2 weeks, there have been so much happening with war, and we don't know if it's what's going to take us, the AI or third world war, or what's going to happen.
Yeah. It's been a heavy 2026.
Yeah. You I 100% agree. It has been heavy. So now we can talk about habits now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more a relaxed portion.
Okay.
But that was a very interesting conversation. I'm going to be thinking about this for a long time. What are some of the habits that you've developed that have helped you the most?
I think the big habits for me have been, first, always just be rooted in my family, right? That's the starting point. And that's 100% your anchor and has to be your anchor. And then look at, your professional life and go, okay, am I doing everything I can in that world to be the best person possible when I show up at work for my colleagues and for my team? And then I think about, my own health, right? Physical health, mental health, emotional health, and I do a lot of work to keep that in check as much as I can.
Now for the lightning round.
Okay, lightning round. Jeez.
What's one thing you wish you knew when you were 22?
Oh, I wish I knew when I was 22.
What were you doing when you were 22?
When I was 22, I guess I would have just graduated university, would have started Accenture. Yeah, I think it's probably I overthink things a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I think maybe we all have a tendency to, but I overthink things a lot, and that can take up a lot of mind share. And so I would say just try not to overthink, and as much as you can focus more and more on the present. It is really hard for me. I can't believe it's been 20 years since I've been, but I was in a building before this podcast where I was working on a Kluche project with some alumni that I still keep in touch with, and time just flies. So I guess, thinking back to what I wish I would have known when I was 22 is how fast time flies. And it's, every year, and it's just, every year it just picks up more and more and more. And then you have kids and you think, oh, wow, like it's, okay, like it's going to be 2 decades before they're 20. And you're like, oh, wow, we're already halfway there, and so I think that all comes back to just how fast time flies. So just as much as you possibly can, just be in that moment. Yeah.
That's very deeply, and it's concerning.
Well, you shouldn't be concerned. You just enjoy. It's because, I mean, you can't change it. So enjoy the moment, enjoy the ride.
I deeply agree with that. The only problem is that technology has made it quite hard to be in the present, at least for me.
That's true. Yes.
So I think, like, everybody's using their phone, right? And you can just see everybody like being pulled to their phones whenever there's like a slight pause in the hangout or in the conversation. First thing to do
Yep.
is go and get some stimulation.
Yep.
So I think it has been a bit of it's a challenge, right? So now there's some of the problems that we've created. It's that. So now there's multiple companies trying to solve that and sell you the solution of be present.
Yeah.
I have an app that's called Be Present, and it works great, actually. I actually recommend it to people. I'm on my phone less. My phone average went from like 6 hours to being like 3 hours right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's actually good. But the point is, I think sometimes disconnecting from the internal dialogue and enjoying,
Yeah.
it's hard.
It's not easy. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, devices are only getting us, or make us only even more connected. The more we can disconnect from those, the more we can be present in these moments, for sure.
If you can place a billboard
Mm-hmm.
in every corner around the world,
Oh boy.
so everybody's looking at this billboard,
Yeah.
and you can place a phrase or a quote on this billboard, so people look at it and they start to slowly change their mindsets towards something positive.
Yeah.
What phrase or quote would you put on the billboard?
Oh, wow. What phrase or quote would I have put on that billboard? Probably it would be enjoy the journey. It's not about the outcome. Yeah. It really is about the journey.
I like that. Thank you so much for being here today. It has been a pleasure having you on.
My pleasure.
What
Thank
is
you.
your takeaway for students?
Takeaway for students. This is a fascinating time. And it's a fascinating time for everybody. For students, I think that you're coming into a world that is changing. Like, it's always been changing, but it's changing very fast. I think that if you've got, again, I'll come back to the optimist in me to say that if you have some creativity, if you have something that inspires you, if you have something that you do, Naval talks about this idea that for you, it's super fun. For others, they think it's really, really hard. But for you, it's just this thing that people look at you and they're like, that's amazing. You do. I could never do that.
Your superpower.
Your superpower, right? If you can find that superpower, you have an opportunity to run with that and do something special with it, more than I think any generation has. So yes, there is a lot of disruption that's happening right now from a technology standpoint, but you have an opportunity to be a part of that in a fun way.
That's it for today's episode, Nation. If you got value from this, share it with someone who needs to hear it, or post it on your story to help us reach more people. We are here to bring systems, stories, and strategies that will actually work for life. Follow us on socials, leave a review, and we'll see you next week.